Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Big Idea. I'm your host, Jason Seymour. I'm the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to ASEAN. The U.S. mission to ASEAN started this show because we know that Southeast Asia is filled with leaders just like you, but leaders sometimes have big ideas and they don't do anything with it. And sometimes leaders take those big ideas and they turn them into a reality. And we have one very special guest for you today who did just that. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Let's bring in Wiratni Budhijanto.
Hi, Jason.
I already have to apologize. I'm only a minute into the show and I have to apologize. I worry I butchered your name. I hope I got it right.
Yeah, that's very good. That's actually a very challenging name to pronounce, so don't worry about that.
I do apologize. I should have had that ready to go. But I'm excited to welcome you to the program. You are an ASEAN Science and Technology Fellow. So we definitely want to talk about this very exciting US government program. This program has a lot of different partners. I want to make sure I get them right. We've got the ASEAN Foundation, the ASEAN Committee on Science, Technology, and Innovation, the ASEAN Secretariat, and of course, the US Agency for International Development. So a lot of people have joined together to create this very, very exciting fellowship. And you got to participate. So how did you first hear about this fellowship?
I think I hear from one of my senior in my university, in Gadjah Mada University in Indonesia. He told me that I should try this program if I want to make more impact of my scientific work.
Fantastic. And tell the audience a little bit about the application process.
Okay, before that, let me tell you a little bit about my life before this SNT fellowship, because I would like to share why I apply for this fellowship. So I applied for this fellowship in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. It was already 5 years ago, but this is one of the most memorable fellowship for me. This is not my first fellowship. I'm a fellowship hunter, but this one is I consider this as the most beneficial for me. So before this fellowship, you can say that I am a 100% scientist working in the laboratory with my science, busy with my science. But I also have an idealism to outreach for the community. So I want the community to take advantage of what I'm working in the laboratory. My specialization is waste to energy. So I work on the technology to convert waste into renewable energy. So this is what happened. I feel that I'm very confident with my technology. I already published in a good journal. It means that my work is scientifically verified. But when I try to apply that in the community, I feel that a lot of challenge there, not only the technology, but I feel that technology is just a small part to apply our science. And I feel that I failed. I'm not satisfied with my result in disseminating the technology. So I go to one day I had the chance to meet one of my senior in the university, and I discuss with him why I failed in disseminating this technology. And then he said that that's because you are too scientific. When you try to convince people outside the academic community, then you have to learn how to speak their language. If you want a government understand that your idea is good enough for your country, then you have to speak with their language, not your language. And by then he said, by the way, do you know that there is this interesting program called US, at that time it called ASEAN US Science and Technology Fellowship. So I go through the space, and I feel that I can fill the gap of communication and others by applying this fellowship. That's why I apply to this fellowship. The application process is very simple, just sending proposals, and I don't think they interview me. This is just based on like motivation letter and proposal and also track record, I think. And yeah, I'm lucky to be chosen as one of the fellow to improve my communication skill, especially.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of communication skills, you do have a fan in the audience. Sadiq Permana texted that you are the best lecturer Sadiq has ever met. So
yeah.
Congratulations, you made an impression. And thanks, Sadiq, for writing a comment. And I just want to encourage the audience, please share your comments, your questions. We love to hear from the audience. So let's unpack a little bit about what you were saying. You wanted to go into your background, and you mentioned that you are 100% a scientist. So have you always been fascinated with science when you were very, very young? Did you know you wanted to become a scientist?
I don't think so. I think I was accidentally involved in this academic life. So when I choose chemical engineering, actually I want to work in a big oil and gas company. I never think a career as a university professor, but during my senior year, my 4th year in Gajah Mada University, there is one professor. He was my research advisor. He told me that Wiratni, you really you are really talented in research. I never realized that I'm talented in research. So I start thinking research and academic life as my destiny. And then at that time, I fall in love with one of the faculty member. So I cannot go to the oil and gas company because I have to work in Yogyakarta also. So I had to choose this career. But after I start doing this job, I realized that I think I was destined for this career. I really enjoy academic life and doing research. So this is accidental, but I enjoy it very much.
It is so wonderful, and that is so common that people go to university and they have one idea of what they want to study or what they want to do, but then life has twists and turns, or they
life twists,
or they take a class or something like that. It's definitely a time to be open to new possibilities. Wow. So you started studying science, and then you realized that you needed to develop your communication skills. As you said, you have to learn the language of scientists. What is an example of what you mean? What is the language of scientists?
The language of scientists, we always talk about numbers, data, and then fact, plain fact, like this mathematical truth, 1 + 1 = 2. But when I try to use the same language to talk to people outside my discipline, I found that their 1 + 1 not always = 2, because it depends, something like that. There are things that surprise me outside this university world that scientific language cannot just talk as a nick language. You have to try to use the language that usually used by the community that you want to talk to.
This reminds me of something that Einstein once said, and he said it in different forms and different times, so there's no one exact quote, but he said, if you can explain something to a 6-year-old, then you know you really understand what you're talking about.
Exactly, I agree with that.
right? And
right.
it doesn't matter whether you're a scientist, it really doesn't matter what your field is. If you always hang around people who have the same ideas and the same background, then you don't develop your communication skills. So I'm not an expert in waste management. So if you were to explain that to me, you would have to use very, very simple language.
Right.
So, and that is something that's so important to practice. So you went for this fellowship, this exciting fellowship opportunity. And what did you want to research with the fellowship?
Especially still in my passion, in my scientific passion, it is a conversion of waste into energy. And the project that I work on my fellowship is on palm oil industry. So I explore the possibility to utilize more of the waste material from palm oil industry, so that the industry can be more sustainable and not environmentally not become environmental burden.
I know we were talking before, it's very important to you in your scientific research that you're looking for the future and you're looking to make a positive impact in communities. And this desire that you have to really have this, to create something positive, did that evolve? From where did that desire come?
You mean about making the science impactful?
Yes.
I think it starts about 10 or 13 years ago. So that's the first time I have a community outreach program to introduce the biogas technology to people in a dairy, dairy farmers. So there is there was one village in one of the province in Java Island. The entire population there, they have cows. Every house they have 2 cows, and they do not think that just throwing away the waste of the cows to the river will be damaging to the environmental, because they are thinking, my cows is only 2 cows. This is just a little bit waste to be cleaned up and thrown to the river. But if it is multiplied by the number of the houses in the village, it turns out to be almost 10 tons of cow dirt to be just washed away into the river. So that in the project, I and my team, we have to convince people over there that what you are doing is not good for the environment, and actually you are throwing away money, because from this dirt you can extract the energy, you can save money to you do not have to buy gas for cooking and others. So we try to campaign for about almost 2 months. Every week we have meetings and with the leaders of the community, and we try to convince them that it is not healthy to continue what you are doing. And what they answered us is very surprising. They said that, do you really think that this is an unhealthy habit? Because we are okay, nobody sick. So this is just no problem, just washing away the dirt of the cow into the river. And actually, I was speechless. How can I answer? Because I always use the health issue to be the reason not doing that. But they feel that their life is okay without changing the bad habit. And then we try to change our strategy. We said that, okay, you are healthy, but what do you think if I said you can save this amount of money if you convert this waste into biogas, so you do not have to buy gas for cooking? And they said that, we have no problem with the gas, because gas for cooking is subsidized by the government. So they just pay a little bit. It is not expensive at all. I can still live comfortably without the necessity to keep my cow dirt and then to change that into the biogas. So then I'm convinced that I need somebody else to help me to communicate this idea to the people. And what I learned from that is that to change the behavior of the community, technology is not sufficient. We need regulation also to help the technology to get to establish the better lifestyle. That's what the most important lesson that I learned from that point. But the problem is how can I change the regulation? I'm just a university lecturer. I cannot go to Jakarta, go to some ministry and then knock the door. Hey, Mr. Minister, I want to talk to you about this cow dirt problem in East Java. That's I think that's the turning point that I realized there was something missing in my my strategy to make my science more useful. I have to find a way to give more information to policymakers so that perhaps my science can help Indonesia to be better. So I think that's the reason.
So interesting. So did you start to develop ties to politicians, to legislators, to government officials? Was that the next step?
Yes, the fellowship itself is very short. It is just 1 year. So during the fellowship, I have not really been influential in some regulation, but at least I learned how the government works. So I understand how they make the regulation, and I understand whom I should talk to if I have idea to be considered in the next regulation. So, for example, right now, I am not only me, but it is with I'm with a team. We are working with the Ministry of Energy to develop a kind of biogas roadmap. So, how the government should proceed in the future step by step, so that my my little problem like the waste to energy conversion in that village can be considered as at the country level. So not only this is the problem of one village, but how Indonesia will see the potential of the waste, and especially to the direction of biogas. It is still a long way to go, I think, Jason, but I'm happy that this fellowship has put me on the right track so that I can find the right people to listen to the idea.
Absolutely understandable. You know, we all do our part and we all take one step on the journey, and it is a very, very long process to make change. Yes. And I always encourage anyone who wants to be a leader, has a cause to make a change, that everyone has to understand that this is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience and a lot of coordination. I do have to say to our audience, so if someone in our audience is really passionate about the environment and waste management, get to know a scientist. So, because those facts and that research is very important to do effective advocacy. So I hope anyone who's in Indonesia and focused on waste management, or anywhere in Southeast Asia who needs some facts and research, maybe they'll get in touch with you and use some of your research in their pursuit.
Thank you for the advertisement.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a good cause. It's a very good cause. So as part of your research, you spent some time in the United States, both getting a PhD and follow-up research. I know that you pursued your PhD in West Virginia. Where did you attend? Yes.
Where?
Which university?
Oh, West Virginia University in Morgantown.
And how did you come to select that specific school?
I don't really remember. That's a long time ago in the 2000, in the year of 2000s. I think. Yeah, I remember because this chemical engineering in West Virginia University was focusing on. It was famous for coal related technology, and at that time, Indonesia is we were realizing that our oil what do you call that? Our oil is depleting, and we are shifting towards other resources, and one of it is coal. So that's why I was interested to go there.
Yeah, one of the things that I talk to with potential foreign students or people not from the United States going to the United States for study, sometimes they say, oh, I have to go to Harvard or I have to go to Yale. They don't know why. And I always say back to them, what is it that you want to study? Because maybe the best university for your field is in West Virginia or Oregon, or maybe a part of the state that you haven't heard of. So tell our audience a little bit, what you were Indonesian, you decided to go to West Virginia. West Virginia doesn't have a lot of Americans of Indonesian descent. What kind of cultural shock experiences did you have?
I don't really feel a very serious cultural shock because I consider myself as a very flexible person. So when I'm in a new environment, then perhaps it will take me like one or 2 months to absorb how is the habit of the people and others, and I can easily blend in. And especially West Virginia, it is just a quiet state, so it is easy for me to adjust myself. It is not like if my first time to the US was New York City, for example, it might be cultural shock for me. But for West Virginia, I think the process of adaptation is quite easy.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And when you were approaching science, one might assume that the academic approach to science would be similar around the world. Because science is science. Did you find that the approach to the sciences in the United States was similar to what you had experienced in Indonesia, or were there differences?
Yeah, the science itself is the same. I mean, chemical engineering in Indonesia or in United States, we perceive that as the same chemical engineering. But there is something that I feel different is I think the way of the professors in the United States to organize their scientific duty, whether it is teaching or research or others. I think United States American professors are more well planned. So when they are going to teach, they really prepare the material very carefully based on their research, not on the textbook. So they can teach more excitingly. Yeah, I think the difference is more on the culture of the professors, not the science itself.
That makes a lot of sense. It's very important in the U.S. approach to research and academia from the point of view of the professors is to not just regurgitate the textbook word for word, but he or she always brings out other elements of the story, the research, to try to make it relatable to the students. Absolutely agree.
Right.
Absolutely agree. So slightly veering from that topic, but there's a lot of discussion in the United States about women in STEM. It should be science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. What have you experienced as a woman scientist, either in Indonesia or the United States?
Okay. I work in engineering field, and I think many people still associating engineering with physical strength, So it is like a very male-dominated world, and people assume that we have to be able to do manly job to work in engineering. Of course, it is not true because on the level of design, it is not. We do not need muscle; we need brain. And when we are talking about brain, then I don't think there is any difference between male and female. But in fact, especially in Indonesia, people still think that engineering associated with physical activity, and sometimes I experience that people do not take me seriously because my look doesn't represent that I can climb distillation tower, for example. I don't represent any physical superpower. So sometimes they just do not take me seriously and prefer to work with male engineer. It happens, but yeah, it only takes patience and time to convince them that I really know what I'm doing and what I'm talking about, although I cannot climb any tower. It just takes time, and I survive, so no problem.
Happy to hear it. Well, in any career, no matter what one is doing, it can take time to establish credibility. Right. You have to prove yourself. You have to push forward. Whatever hurdles come your way, no matter what the job is, if you believe in yourself and you know you have something to contribute, just push, 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 keep going. Definitely good advice. And I agree. In most of the sciences, you don't need muscles. You just need a lot of brains. I like that. Right. I'm keeping that in mind. Wow. So when you went to West Virginia, did you get to travel in that part of the United States? Did you have any good experiences with cultural elements that you want to share with your audience? Places that Southeast Asians should know about, should visit one day?
Yeah, I do not travel. I didn't travel a lot because at that time I lived on scholarship, so I had a limitation of budget. So I just visited standard tourist attraction in United States like Washington DC, New York City, and around that area, around West Virginia. And then during my second time to the US, I went to Cornell University for visiting research. I stayed there for 1 year. And the thing I enjoy the most in the United States, especially on the East Coast, is during the fall season. I really love the colors. And also I love the festivity during the falls, like apple cider festival that's in New York City, in New York State, and Thanksgiving. That's the thing that I like to hang out with my American friends. I really enjoy the traditional American meals during the Thanksgiving. I'm not really traveling so much in the United States, but I enjoy my interactions with people around me while I was there.
Thanksgiving is such a special holiday because it's an American holiday when anyone, any immigrant community, no matter what your background is, everyone can get together with family and celebrate and have good food. It brings everyone together. It's a special day.
Yeah.
Returning to science a bit, if you were to make a recommendation to young people who are thinking about studying the sciences in the universities or pursuing a research track, what are the hot areas right now in the sciences where people are getting jobs, where people are able to get good research funding? Are there specific areas within bio or chemical engineering that you would recommend for students?
Under my discipline, chemical engineering, I think the hot issues for the next 2 or 3 decades are energy and health. So energy, it is clear because we need energy to make the economy moving. But sometimes chemical engineers do not realize that their expertise can also be useful in the medical track. So, for example, to produce medicine, perhaps the first step will be taken by our friend medical doctors and also from pharmaceutical people from pharmaceutical department. But when it comes to produce this medicine or vaccine or whatever in a large scale, then chemical engineers are needed over there. So if you are a chemical engineering students, then you should consider this area to the medical area, also biomaterial, for example, because in the future when we have surgery or we have a wound, it should be, we want to be healed more quickly, and it takes advanced material. That's where chemical engineer can step in also. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because there are many people who are interested in health and they think that the only option is being a doctor or a nurse, and there are so many different careers within the health field, including chemical engineering. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Now, do you have any role models, scientist role models, alive or dead, in Southeast Asia or the United States? Who are your science role models?
Do you know Louis Pasteur? How to pronounce that? Louis Pasteur. He found some vaccine. I was inspired by one of the quotes. He said that science has no boundary because science should be for humanity, something like that. So science should not be spirited by the borderline among country, because with science we can improve the quality of life as human being, not considering this is just for this country or that country, this race or that race, because science is for humanity. That's the most inspiring quotes from the Louis Pasteur.
Thank you so much for those words. I was thinking while you were saying that, during this whole COVID crisis, scientists have been sharing information from country to country, seeing this as a true global problem. We really can solve problems together. And when scientists with a lot of brains, as you described, from all these different countries can come together and solve global problems, it's the best. It's really exciting. It's really exciting to see how we are working together more and more. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today for this interview.
You are welcome.
The US government is definitely a fan of yours, and I'm so glad you were able to be part of this Science and Technology Fellowship that brings together ASEAN, the US Agency for International Development, and so many people, so many entities who really want to develop the world of science and give people like you an opportunity to develop your craft. So I'm so glad you were selected, and I'm so glad you were able to join us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much. All right, to our audience, thanks for joining us. And until the next episode of The Big Idea, take care.
See you.